You'd probably never guess this, but one animal actually poops perfect cubes. It's the wombat. Different parts of its intestines squeeze the waste into tiny cubes so it won't roll away from its territory. Imagine opening a 3,000-year-old jar of honey and finding it's still edible. That's exactly what archaeologists discovered inside ancient Egyptian tombs. Honey is one of the very few foods that can survive for thousands of years. Sea otters don't just float while sleeping. They actually hold each other's hands so ocean currents won't pull them apart. Some even wrap themselves in giant kelp like a natural sleeping bag. Scotland's national animal isn't a lion, or even a real animal. It's the unicorn. For centuries, the mythical creature represented purity, strength, and an untamable spirit. Here's something that sounds completely backwards. Bananas are berries, but strawberries aren't. According to botany, nature classifies them in exactly the opposite way most people expect. The official name for a group of flamingos is a flamboyance. Honestly, after seeing hundreds of bright pink birds dancing together, it's hard to imagine a more perfect name. Your stomach contains acid strong enough to dissolve metal. So why doesn't it digest itself? Because every few days, it grows an entirely new protective lining before the acid can do any damage. If a crow remembers your face, don't expect it to forget anytime soon. These birds can recognize people for years and even warn other crows about someone they don't trust. Venus spins in the opposite direction from almost every other planet. If you could stand on its surface, you'd watch the sun rise in the west and set in the east. Octopuses sometimes get so annoyed that they throw shells and sand at fish bothering them. Scientists have actually filmed this happening. Apparently, even life underwater has its limits. Pigeons are much smarter than most people think. In laboratory tests, they learn to recognize hundreds of real English words and tell them apart from complete nonsense. Koalas have fingerprints that look so much like ours, they can even confuse forensic investigators. It's one of the strangest similarities between humans and another animal. There's a tiny jellyfish that has figured out an incredible survival trick. Instead of dying, it can reverse its own life cycle and become young all over again. The shortest war ever recorded lasted only about 38 minutes. Before many people even realized a war had begun, it was already over. Here's a fact that completely changes prehistoric history. Sharks were swimming through Earth's oceans millions of years before the very first trees ever appeared. Have you ever heard of an animal that breathes through its butt? Believe it or not, some freshwater turtles do exactly that. During freezing winters, they absorb enough oxygen through specialized tissues near their tail to survive for months beneath the ice. Sloths move so slowly that algae actually grow on their fur. Instead of being a problem, the green coating works like natural camouflage, helping them disappear among the trees and avoid hungry predators. People often think ancient civilizations are the oldest places of learning, but Oxford University was already teaching students centuries before the Aztec Empire even existed. That's how old it really is. Imagine celebrating your birthday every 88 days. But waiting 176 days for sunrise. That's everyday life on Mercury, where a single day lasts twice as long as an entire year. This underwater artist spends days building something incredible just to impress a date. Male pufferfish create enormous circular sand sculptures on the ocean floor, hoping a female will think their masterpiece is worthy. Butterflies don't always drink flower nectar. Sometimes they land on turtles and quietly sip their tears instead. It sounds bizarre, but those salty tears provide important minerals they can't easily find anywhere else. The inventor of the Pringles can loved his invention so much that part of his ashes was buried inside one. His family honored his unusual final request exactly the way he wanted. Scientists discovered something unexpectedly adorable. Rats actually laugh when they're tickled. Their laughter is too high-pitched for human ears, but special equipment reveals they're having far more fun than anyone expected. This lake looks like someone poured giant buckets of pink paint into it, but the color is completely natural. Tiny algae and salt-loving microorganisms create the incredible bright pink water all by themselves. Cows aren't nearly as emotionless as people imagine. They often choose a best friend, spend most of their time together, and become noticeably stressed whenever they're separated from each other. The Eiffel Tower isn't always the same height. During hot summer days, the metal expands enough for the tower to grow by several centimeters, before shrinking again when the weather cools. Wild parrots don't just recognize each other by sight. Many scientists believe they use unique signature calls that work almost like personal names, helping them identify individual members of their flock. Every giant panda leaves behind something completely unique. Just like humans, each panda has its own distinctive paw print, allowing researchers to identify individuals without ever seeing the animal itself. Most people assume the Sahara is Earth's largest desert. It isn't. Antarctica receives so little precipitation that it's officially classified as the biggest desert on the entire planet. Every autumn, squirrels accidentally become nature's tree planters. They hide thousands of nuts for later, forget many of them, and those forgotten acorns eventually grow into entirely new forests. That fluffy white cloud floating overhead looks almost weightless, but appearances are deceiving. A large cloud can actually weigh more than 1,000,000 pounds while quietly drifting across the sky. Dolphins have been spotted doing something that completely surprised scientists. They gently pass pufferfish between one another like toys, possibly because the fish release chemicals that create unusual sensations. Imagine standing in a room so quiet that you start hearing your own heartbeat, your breathing, even your stomach working. That's exactly what happens inside the world's quietest room, and many people can't stay there for long. Goats see the world very differently from us. Their strange rectangular pupils give them an incredibly wide field of view, allowing them to spot danger without constantly turning their heads. Most hiccups disappear after a few minutes, but one man kept hiccuping for 68 years. It remains one of the longest and most unbelievable medical cases ever recorded. Some frogs survive winter in a way that sounds impossible. Their bodies freeze solid, their hearts stop beating, and months later they thaw out, wake up, and hop away as if nothing happened. That fresh smell of cut grass might seem pleasant to us, but for the grass, it's actually a distress signal. Damaged plants release chemicals that warn nearby plants something is attacking. Lightning is far more powerful than it looks. For a tiny fraction of a second, the air inside a lightning bolt becomes about 5 times hotter than the surface of the sun. Cuttlefish are masters of disguise. They don't just change color in an instant, they can also change the texture of their skin, making themselves look almost exactly like rocks, coral, or seaweed. Some penguins don't win hearts with flowers or songs. Instead, a male searches for the perfect pebble and carefully presents it to a female. If she accepts it, their future nest, and possibly their family, begins with that single stone. One species of ant has an unbelievable last line of defense. When enemies attack, certain workers sacrifice themselves by bursting open and releasing a sticky, toxic substance that protects the entire colony. Your nose is far more powerful than scientists once believed. Modern research suggests humans can recognize around 1 trillion different smells, making our sense of smell astonishingly sophisticated. The moon isn't staying with us forever. Every single year, it drifts about 3.8 centimeters farther away from Earth. It's a tiny distance now, but over millions of years, the night sky slowly changes. A mantis shrimp is only about the size of your hand, yet it throws one of the fastest punches in nature. The strike is so powerful, it creates an underwater shockwave capable of cracking shells and stunning prey instantly. Deep in the rainforest, some spiders share their homes with tiny frogs. The frogs eat insects that threaten the sword's eggs, while the spider protects its unexpected little roommate. It's one of nature's strangest partnerships. Here's a planet that completely breaks the rules. Saturn is so light for its size that if you could somehow find an ocean big enough, the entire planet would actually float on the surface. Nature created a real-life zombie long before horror movies did. A strange fungus infects ants, takes control of their behavior, forces them to climb to the perfect location, and only then releases its spores. People often associate cats with ancient Egypt, but the oldest known pet cat was buried with its owner more than 9,000 years ago on Cyprus, proving our friendship with cats began far earlier than most people realize. Some birds do something that looks completely crazy. They deliberately sit on active ant nests and let hundreds of ants crawl through their feathers because the insects naturally remove parasites and keep them healthier. Now here's a fact that will probably break your brain. Every time you thoroughly shuffle a standard deck of 52 cards, there's an overwhelming chance you've just created an order that has never existed before in the entire history of the universe.